your faith? This is what Jesus asked his disciples in the aftermath of the storm that had nearly drowned them, as they cowered in the boat, dazed and terrified from that experience. On first reading, it doesn't sound like the most compassionate or caring response that we might expect from Jesus. And I feel sorry for those disciples. They had recently been called to follow Jesus, had left everything, had their lives turned upside down by the whirlwind of events they had seen in recent days. Healing miracles, the casting out of demons, hours of learning and trying to understand confusing parables. And now they were in a boat, sailing a couple of miles across the Sea of Galilee to the other side, not for some relaxing downtime, but actually on the way to unfamiliar territory, a different culture, and a harsh landscape. But Jesus, just like any other human, needs sleep. And then the storm arrives. We don't know how many disciples were in the boat, or even how many boats there were. But we do know from the 3 synoptic Gospels that there were experienced fishermen, and they all thought their lives were in danger. The storm came, and the boat was being thrown about and started to fill with water. And this is the part that I have often wondered about. How come Jesus didn't wake up? Was he below deck? In which case, he must have been getting thrown about and getting wet. The Gospel of Mark says he was asleep on a cushion in the stern. Surely he was getting wet, let alone nearly been thrown out of the boat. A lot of commentaries suggest he slept deliberately to test the faith of the disciples. But this doesn't work for me. If that was the intention, it didn't work. And it seems so out of character with God that, like a child feigning sleep, he would lie on the cushion with one eye open, just seeing what the disciples were doing and how they were reacting. We will never know how, but he slept. And then the disciples wake him. Another question. Do they expect him to have the answer and to sort the storm out? I don't think so. I think at this point they wake him up because they don't want him to drown. He's their teacher and their leader. And at this moment, after all, it's about all hands on deck. But unbeknown to the disciples, it is God in their boat. And I don't think they expect what follows for 1 minute. Nothing can prepare them for this. The disciples witness Jesus, both human and divine. Jesus the human, tired and maybe even grumpy at being woken up. But then the Son of God, commanding the storm to subside, rebuking the weather in the same way he cast demons out. And the storm subsides, and Jesus sees them, terrified and amazed, and gently says, "Where is your faith?" This is not a rebuke. I think he wants them to understand who he is and point them to God. These disciples, after all, are embedded in the Jewish culture, with the Shema on their hearts. Love the Lord your God with all your heart, with all your strength, and with all your soul, from Deuteronomy 6. He is showing them that he has come to fulfill the scriptures, not only to save humanity, but all of creation. And I believe this experience is formational to their understanding of what is to take place. So, of course, that was then, and this is now. We are living in the last ages, post-resurrection of Jesus, and waiting for his return. But the question is still pertinent. Where is our faith? So now it's over to you. I want you to take a moment to consider the signs that you know and recognise of the Holy Spirit in us and transforming us. What do we see, feel, hear or know that is different about us since we started our walk with Christ? I think I would like you just to take a moment now to share, if you feel able, what you feel with your neighbour, as sharing our journeys helps us as a community grow in faith. Maybe that's a tricky question. It's hard to verbalise that continual transformative process that is taking place with God in us. So another question for you, and after this one, if anyone would like to share, I have a mic at the ready. So take a minute to discuss with your neighbour, what prayer have you had answered? Maybe this week, maybe a bit further back, but something that sticks in your mind. Maybe you keep a journal of your prayer requests and log which prayers have been answered. I'm not efficient enough to do that, but I do know some people who do. So just have a think. Where has you had prayer answered recently? Is there anyone brave enough to share a prayer they've had answered? Or is that a step too far? Yes, fantastic.
I would say I find myself praying a lot before meetings at work, and particularly really hard meetings and meetings that I know are going to be difficult for whatever reason, whether difficult meetings with members of staff or funding conversations or whatever it is. And in those moments, I will typically just take 5 or 10 minutes to sit and pray, and I know that meeting has gone well, not necessarily through me, although I'd like to think that maybe I had something to do with it, but that God is there guiding me in terms of the things that I say.
Thank you, Ian. Anybody else who'd like to share an answer to prayer? Not forgetting the people in the chancel who think they can hide. Maybe that's something for us to consider through the week, as well as praying to God, reflecting and taking time to sit with God and recognise those moments where we have seen him at work. Which brings me to my third question. Not a prayer that you've made, but where have you seen God at work recently, unexpectedly? And it can be anything from that parking space that opened up to something that completely changed the course of your day. Where have you seen God at work recently? Please share. Can I pinch what I just overheard you say, Jennifer?
No. My garden fence is flattened. Whether that was God or not, I don't know. I don't have a garden fence anymore.
Which is a really interesting theological question. Was God in the storm? And I'm not going to try and answer that one. But we know that God is there. Part of building his kingdom is to restore all of creation, not just humans. And we also know that there is a spiritual battle raging around us in our everyday, in every decision that we make, and in every situation we come to. And maybe that is the answer. That when we take time to stop and to look, we can be more aware of God at work. Yep.
I think one of the things that, sorry, I'll not hide round the corner. So one of the things that some of you will be aware of, but others won't, is really an answer to prayer about how we work with our families. And if you come in on a Monday between 10 and... What? Go to this one.
They just move over.
Oh, so people... So the cameras can perceive me as well. If you come in between 10 and 11:30, you'll find church full of parents, carers, and little people all playing. And I think, understand there's usually about 14, 15 children. In fact, the week before last, Nadine came to me after she'd been here, and she said there were 26 children here with, as I say, mums, dads. I know there's a granddad that comes sometimes. So, that's been a real answer to prayer that, we have had as a church, of being able to serve people. And Nadine's feeling able to, I think they're going to get a little Lent bag the week after next, and just sort of gradually introducing little bits of faith, because people are really wanting something as well. So I just wanted to, as I say, many of you would not know that that's actually happening.
Thank you. So lastly, I think the storm symbolises our journey with Jesus. It's what living for Jesus means for. It doesn't say in the Bible that faith will be easy, or that once we have God on board, everything's going to go smoothly. So in our times personally of suffering and storm raging, in those times around us where we see literal storms and catastrophes and injustice, we need to look for that still small voice of calm that is God. Amen.
And have a seat, because we've now got the inevitable notices. A week on Wednesday is Ash Wednesday. It always suddenly comes. So we've got the beginning of Lent. And if you received the update, read it, you will have seen quite a lot of the things that are going to be happening. And there was a book review that Nadine had put together. On the table at the back, we've got a bookstall. We've got some books from St Andrews that are there for you to buy, pay for today, or to take home and be able to do a bank transfer. And David's going to be looking after that at the end. But I've got some of the books to encourage you. This is a book called Be Still. It says, A Simple Guide to Quiet Times. And it's helping with sort of the rhythm of prayer in our daily lives. There's going to be a group on a Thursday night on Zoom that's going to be looking through this book. On a Thursday at the 10 o'clock communion, we're going to be picking out parts of it to share with those that are gathering then. But it's got all sorts of different ideas that may help you as we journey through Lent and on beyond that. So that's the Be Still book. Every year a book is published. That's the Archbishop of Canterbury's Lent book. This year it's by Isabel Hamley, who was his chaplain until fairly recently. And it's called Embracing Justice. It says, the Bible tells of God inviting people to join his mission of transformation. And in this book, Hamley, the author, shows how God offers that same invitation to churches, communities, and individual Christians today. even as we too live in a fractured and hurting world. So this is a book that's got prayer and Bible stuff to be looking at. And going alongside that are two much smaller booklets. Every year the Church of England produces this Live Lent, and this time it's Embracing Justice. So there's one for families, a 40-day challenge. It's sort of something for each week, a Bible reading, something to talk about and pray about together. And then a thicker one that is something for every day during Lent, again with a Bible reading and something to be thinking about. So this is really aimed at adults or older teenagers, the other one at children. And then the final book that we've got is called The Hour Is Come. It's by Andrew Nunn, who is the Dean of Southwark Cathedral. And it's taking Holy Week. So if I look at Wednesday in Holy Week, there's something for 9 o'clock, 12 noon, 3 p.m, 10 p.m. And again, thoughts and Bible readings, even words of hymns, but something to lead you through Holy Week when we get to that. So that's there. There are one or two other books that may be of interest, and some children's Easter stories books if you've got grandchildren or children that would be interested in those. So please do have a look. We'll take some into the office, so if you haven't got time to look today, but when you've looked at the reviews you think, oh, this is the book I'd like, then Julie will have those in the office, and they'll be here next Sunday as well. On the 2nd of March, which is Ash Wednesday, we'll have a fairly traditional service at 8 o'clock of communion and the imposition of ashes. There are going to be some talks on Zoom in March. There's going to be a youth Lent group. So there's going to be lots going on, and all of the details for that will be available next week on the update, but also in a printed form as well. So please look and see how you can be preparing yourself for Lent. You should have received an email from the St Mary's email address inviting you to log on to your own account in the Hub Church. When you go into that, you're invited to check the information that's there. So the information about you is what's been inputted from what you told us. So it may be that actually in the meantime, a telephone number's changed, or actually you've moved house, and we don't know that. So you're invited to check that information, and then gradually we will be switching to use the Hub Church for the update, and we'll be able to do rotas like that as well. So please take some time to have a look at it, go into. If you have any problems, there was an email address that said support@stmaryswendover.org. I suspect at the end of that is Mr. Sainsbury. So Ian can help if there's any problems with that. But we're just trying to move over to that, and it'll ultimately make life an awful lot easier for us to do that.